In the early 1980s, a strange phenomenon rooted itself in Africa. On occasional evenings, thousands of South Africans, clad in Western cowboy-inspired apparel, gathered to unite for an unlikely reason: a love for heavy metal music. Developing in the 70s in the United States and United Kingdom from hard rock, heavy metal had quickly fostered the fan base of a dominant music genre, tired of the status quo and seeking freedom through music. This rhetoric quickly spread worldwide, spurred by the global diffusion of technology that enabled musicians in Africa to emulate the amplified, overwhelming electric guitar sound of their Western counterparts. Once popular European bands like Urban Assault and Ragnarok traveled to play in Cape Town midway through the decade, South Africa cemented itself as a new metal hub. More impressive than the speed at which metal developed was the fact that metal spread at all. Ever since its conception, metal has endured severe criticism from a variety of sources. In fact, although metal developed in Africa only a few years after Europe, backlash in Africa forced metalheads to abandon the genre until the 21st century. Open-mindedness in the West, particularly America, led metal to thrive in the 90s. However, public pressure and even acts of violence directed against metalheads in Africa oppressed their self-expression. Slowly, the heavy metal scene in Africa gave ground to dance music until its later resurgence. Although opposition came in many forms, from banned records to imprisonment, many had similar underlying reasons. Most prominently, opposition against metal rose for three reasons: its divide from religion, its social commentary creating political backlash, and its general unorthodoxy. Although this opposition continues to gain widespread support from many groups across Africa, ultimately the heavy metal subculture has thrived and benefited under these harsh conditions.
While researching resentment against the metal genre, we came to the realization that religion played the largest role in oppressing metalheads. More specifically, Christians believed that the metal genre poorly adhered to Christianity's conservative values, and they in turn labeled metalheads as Satanists. Thus, following the overarching trend, fans and younger populations embraced metal, while conservative religious groups criticized and opposed the genre. This divide is evident in Egypt. For many Egyptian fans, the fearless and cathartic subculture of heavy metal symbolizes individualism, elitism, rebellion against unnecessary control, and pride with the cause. For those who further identify as Christian, everything that the Bible preaches about the devil is in essence what black metal is, but through sound waves. Unsurprisingly, many conservative Egyptians look down upon this highly eclectic group of followers. To these religious, mostly older population, metalheads are nothing short of a cult. However, when the musician syndicate attempted to shut down two Satanist parties held in Cairo, initial panic in the community was extremely short-lived. Instead, the complaint aroused metal fans to revolt and bring out strength in numbers. Although some musicians and fans were arrested and some metal gatherings were banned, ultimately concerts resumed.
Heavy metal veteran Mohamed Mabdou, a guitarist and singer in the band Salasul, who has been organizing metal concerts in Egypt since the 1990s, believes that Egyptians demonized the movement by comparing the subcultures to satanic rituals. Religious backlash is also quite common. Islam is not too different from Christianity when it comes to metal music. When metal is presented to devout Muslims, they have one of two reactions. They either accept metal or they reject it. When it is rejected, though, it is rejected on religious grounds. Most other reasons are simply scapegoats. After all, faith and upbringing are ingrained in culture and thus hard to overcome. It all boils down to perception. Muslims who enjoy metal are as representative of the world of Islam today as the Muslims who look and act the way we expect them to. They can be just as radical, if not more so, in their religious beliefs and politics as their peers who spend their days in the mosque, madrasa, or even in an Al-Qaeda training camp. As Mark Levine from NPR says, if we think of what radical really means, to offer analysis of solutions that completely break with the existing frameworks for dealing with an issue or problem, then Muslim metalheads are far more radical than are the supposed radicals of Al-Qaeda, Hamas, or Hezbollah, who are distinctly reactionary in their reliance on violence and conservatively grounded religious and political imaginations.
Although this hatred toward the subculture tries to repress the movement, it only helps spread and perpetuate heavy metal in places it would have otherwise never reached. For example, the Satanic Panic in Madagascar helped spread heavy metal directly to Africa's youth by continually emphasizing its supposedly harmful effects. Roynsham band member Christo Bester praises the officer who tried to lecture him on what to avoid. Quote, "He did us a tremendous favor by doing what he was doing. He went to great lengths to find these great bands." The backlash, as one would expect, exposed a normally hidden niche into the public and foisted the subculture into national coverage. The rockers, in turn, hardly accepted the attention, as it became more of a fashion for those exposed to the subculture. But in other places, such as South Africa, the scene has remained firmly underground, as metalheads, rather than spread their music to others, keep a tight-knit family. Band member JR from Total Chaos writes that they had sanctions, so there were a lot of things that couldn't get into Africa at that time. And because of the sanctions, a real do-it-yourself culture developed. There was a real brotherhood in the subculture. From homemade drums made from animal leather and pans to the hundreds of knockoff metal t-shirts, metalheads transformed their music into a lifestyle and near obsession. Heavy metal possesses an unconscious sense of brotherhood that transcends race and nationality. African heavy metal blurs the lines between liberty and fraternity, and like heavy metal in the Western world, grows on the ideas of exclusionism and isolationism.
Consumes your being.
For most African communities, distorted guitar or headbanging music resembles devil's tunes. While many bands would crack under the pressure, it seems that African bands have risen to face the opposition head-on. Bands such as Rust or heavy metal Stomp yearn to redefine their identity as well as the heavy metal subculture. For example, to try to break free of the black t-shirt look, Joss of the band Alkanaya began wearing white clothes and short hair to try and perpetuate a new look. Rado of heavy metal Stomp has become impassioned to convince people to understand this music has its good too. He says, quote, "I hope, as we are all dreamers and great optimists, I hope we are a part of this change." He, like countless others, has been inspired to follow his heart for the love of metal.